Welcome to the FML podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Shamir Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML podcast. Today we're joined by Karen Barett, founder and CEO of Unbiased. Karen, thank you very much for joining me today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Cool. As I said, just prior to clicking the record button, I'm looking forward to today's podcast episode. Unbiased has been around for such a long time. I'm looking forward to just hearing everything about it in the journey. But before we do that, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey so far?
I got a job out of university that was working for Camelot, the lottery people, and I had visions of myself working in the marketing team, but they didn't share the same vision. And I realised that I needed to go and find another job. I'd worked in accounts there. And I just applied for jobs, got lots of rejections. And one that accepted me was a mortgage provider called Mortgage Express, which was part of Lloyds TSB at the time. And that was a really exciting place to work. I only went there because they were going to pay me more than any other job that I'd been offered. But it was at the point really where the internet was becoming a thing. And it was part of my role to plug us into the wall, the ISDN line, to come up with mortgages and create them and to sell them into other brands. And I loved it. And that business was about 150 people strong. They had a real sort of entrepreneurial feel to what they created. And I really flourished there. But then I wanted some blue chip experience on my CV. So I went and got a job at Santander and quickly learned that sort of big corporate wasn't for me. I felt there was too much red tape, it took too long to get stuff done. So I purposely, following a couple of years there, went and found myself a really small business to work in. I wanted to be a sort of bigger fish in a smaller pond, as it were. And I went to work for a business called IFA Promotion, which did sort of PR and advertising, promoting independent financial advice, and really was where I sort of learned what I've put into Unbiased. Now, in 2010, one of my children was in intensive care for a prolonged period of time. And I started personally thinking about how am I going to be able to work again? Am I going to be able to finance the lifestyle we had before, etc.? And I was looking for a financial advisor. And I was struggling to find one that matched my needs. None of my family and friends had the recommendations that suited my needs. So he recovered, all was well, but it really just gave me the catalyst to set up Unbiased and really make an algorithm really and a sort of tech platform that would help people in the same sort of situation as I am, making big sort of life financial decisions at crucial times, enable them a way of finding a financial advisor quickly and easily. So I started the business in 2010, and it was interesting because despite having worked in financial services for pretty much all my career, I hadn't taken my own financial advice and I didn't have a plan and I didn't have things in place when stuff happened. So I can really have empathy for the people who use our service. You know, people worry, I haven't done anything, they feel bad, I'm unprepared. And look, we know how it feels and we understand that. And I really wanted that to come out in the service that we provide and the content and the way we speak to people. And really, it's grown from there. From 2010, I set up the business. We had sort of 5 people. It's evolved over time. I definitely think I was a bit of a slow starter. It wasn't really until about 2014 that I really cottoned on to the fact that you can grow a business, you can get funds for your business. You know, I was at a conference and heard about R&D tax credits or the grants for being, for coming up with tech. And it was when I started following that up, I was thinking, there's a whole universe and sort of ecosystem out there for these startup, scale-up businesses. And that's really where I started thinking much more around, we're a tech platform, we're going to build a product that is scalable, that's open 24/7. And that really was, I feel, where Unbiased, as we know it now, began.
There's so much that I want to dig into. For everyone kind of listening who doesn't know who Unbiased are, do you want to just give us a very, very kind of quick overview as to what your business does and the problem that you're looking to solve, or the problem you have solved?
Yeah. So Unbiased connects people with financial advisors, mortgage brokers and accountants. So to date, we've helped over 10 million people on their journey to seeking financial advice. We have the country's widest, largest choice of independent financial advisors and mortgage brokers on the platform. And that just means we can match you better with the right one for you. We provide content, tools. We just want to talk to you about financial planning and advice and how you can really get in a better place with your finances. And our mission is to empower everyone to make confident financial decisions.
Now we know a little bit more about you and we know more about Unbiased. I kind of want to start off with that comment that you made about having a bit of a slow start, and it wasn't until obviously a few years in you kind of looked into obviously funding opportunities and kind of all the rest of it. What did the first sort of few years look like, and when do you think you really started to gain traction with the business?
Yeah, so the first few years we had about 5 people in the business to start off with. I had a database of independent financial advisors, and really we were using outsourced companies to build our tech and manage our data and our website. And it was after a few sort of bad experiences where projects were taking a lot of time to be scoped out. We weren't agile. I would get a price for a project and then it would go up before we'd finished it. And I sat there thinking, God, we're meant to be a tech company, and yet I can't enable the technology in the way that I want to. So really, I think we got to a point within about 3 years where about 15 people were working for the business. And I started thinking, how am I going to scale this business? And actually, I read a book called Scale Up by Vern Harnish on holiday one year. And it just really got my mindset shifted into, I'm not running a small business, I'm trying to grow a business. And how do I put that framework in place to start growing? One of those first steps was to bring the tech in-house. And so we hired some developers, built some code alongside the existing website, and then sort of on D-Day pressed a button and, was scared, but did it and made that move to bringing it all in-house. And I think over the period between sort of 2014 and 2015, where we were rebuilding the platform and actually bringing that vision of technology alive, where we wanted to build an algorithm that collected some information from users, from consumers, and matched them with the best advisor. That's really where the tech, came into its own. And I was very focused on the fact that we could be open 24/7. People could access the service whenever they wanted. And actually roll on to when the pandemic happened, I was just so grateful that we were in that space, no physical locations, no physical product. And actually it helped to galvanize advisors sort of online, Zoom, etc., which really just played into our hands of, this is an online product and a service, and we can help consumers 24/7 when they're able to look for a financial advisor, and financial advisors can grow their businesses accepting leads when it suits them. So I think in terms of when we started really growing the business, we rebuilt the platform in about 2015. And it was a few more years of that really honing the product. Because we're a marketplace, we had to grow both sides of our sort of user base, as well as our customers, the professional advisors, at the same speed to get that market efficiency. And it wasn't really until sort of 2017 that we felt we'd done that. We'd replatformed the service. We had a good number of customers on both sides. And really, it was at that point that I started hiring in other senior team members with the intention of going out to do a fundraise, because we'd got the funnel working correctly and we'd got the service working correctly. And really, then we just wanted to supercharge it and bring it to more people.
So up until that point, when you talked about, up until the point of getting ready for a fundraise, were you fundamentally bootstrapped up until that point?
Yes,
or founder funded, as they call it? Amazing.
Yeah, we were.
What do you think along your journey, what do you think the main sort of key factors were that kind of contributed to kind of Unbiased overall success? You mentioned obviously one of them was obviously bringing the tech in-house. Was there anything else?
Yeah, so I think increasingly over time, there's a growing need for financial advice. If you look externally at the macroeconomic conditions that have happened in the last sort of decade, there's a trend of more people requiring advice. You've got baby boomers who have been sitting on, house price growth. They're sitting on big pots of wealth there, defined benefit pensions, etc. The government is always fiddling with sort of the tax regime and also putting the onus of responsibility more and more onto people themselves to look after themselves, saying care home fees, retirement. They've been pulling back in what the government supports people with, so that people are having to take, steps to ensure that they're financially secure themselves. So that's really helped us in terms of more people want advice. And there is a massive advice gap. We've got 8% of people annually taking financial advice, yet 20 million adults saying they would really find financial advice useful. And so at Unbiased, we were helping, 5 years ago, we had about 2 million visits to the sites a year. And now we've grown that to nearly 10 million. And it's just really where we've been able to get our brand out there in front of people and saying, look, we're here. Financial advisors are willing to help. And I think Unbiased is a great name, right? It really resonates that we are unbiased. We will put you in touch with a financial advisor who's working just for you. And I think that resonates with lots of different brands who have then used their websites, etc., to refer back to us. They feel really confident that we're going to give their customers or readers or communities a really great experience. And that halo effect that we've got from brands, product providers, government sites, etc., money saving expert, those types of brands referring people back to us because we're offering a service that they can't, which is sort of that bespoke advice where people aren't pushing product or selling product, they're actually working on behalf of the client, has been really brilliant for us as a business. And I think the other side of it is because we are a marketplace, it's not just about the consumers and the service we offer them. We're a really effective machine for professional advisors who are wanting to grow their business. And just to put that into context, last year we were responsible for adding over 20 billion in assets under management to their businesses. And just to compare that, we'll talk about the US, which we've recently launched into. But the biggest competitor that we have in the US, which is a market 10 times the size, did exactly the same number in terms of introducing that assets under management to their customer base. So you can see how effective we are in a market that's a tenth of the size. We're delivering that value to our customer base. And I think really it's a number of things that have made us successful, in terms of the third-party referrals, the service that we offer being really great for customers. And then just, I think, the experience we've had in the market. You mentioned we've been around a while. It feels to me like it hasn't ever been the same. It's sort of been a roller coaster, and I've very much had to wear different hats and do different jobs at different stages. But what we have got is a lot of data and a lot of experience from doing what we do, which enables us now to make decisions much, much better than we ever were able to before in terms of running the business.
One of the things that comes to my mind, knowing how much impact that you've had in that figure around, the 20 billion pounds under assets under management, makes me think of a lot of the sort of personal financial management fintech apps that have been popping up. And we've seen a fair few pop up. We've seen a fair few drop by the wayside. And I'd be really interested to hear your take as to, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this without offending anyone. What ingredient do you think they're missing from the recipe of success?
Well, so first of all, you're right. They've popped up and popped down again. It can be hard to get it right. People are interested in finances, their own finances, but you can't make it hard. And I think some of the apps that have failed have not been intuitive enough or have expected the user to do too much groundwork to even get started. Connecting accounts or putting in information and all that work that needs to be done before something like that can work really well. I think that the budgeting apps that we see in, say, the banking apps or something like Plum or Emma, they're great because it's the starting point of know where your money goes, start the budgeting, right? And even the robo-advisors where people can now invest really easily and, they can do a tracker fund and they can just access financial product much more easily than they ever could. I think that's the win, but I am surprised at how long it's taken us really in the tech industry to, utilize open banking, to do the heavy lifting for a consumer. There should be some data that can be fact checked, and then they should be able to pull all their data into one place so you get a holistic view of your finances. That would be a huge step forward in people then understanding and us being able to, as an industry, nudge people towards the actions they should be taking. And then just the other thing, I've been through it. You mentioned the bootstrapping, getting started, getting users and then monetizing it isn't an easy game, right? And if you're talking about you need a lot of users and you're only going to be charging a small amount of money because actually there's no inherent value in, a budgeting app, etc., if people can access it via other sources, that's where it's really difficult. There's a lot that we can still do to try and get people to engage with their finances. These budgeting tools and some of these apps are definitely making a difference, but we need to do a lot more work and help the user rather than asking them to do a lot of work to set up.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And it's, I mean, I kind of boil things down to like the simplest things. And I think if one of your biggest competitors is an Excel spreadsheet, you're in for a bit of a ride to begin with. But I think one of the key things that you touched upon was getting users in and then actually then producing revenue and monetizing that. I don't know if you mind sharing, but what is Unbiased sort of, how do you monetize your user base, if you don't mind me asking?
No, of course. So for the consumers, the service is free. So we work really hard and spend a lot of money on acquiring consumers and getting them into the website and creating an inquiry. We monetize the professional advisors. So there's 3 strands to that, really. One is a subscription payment to access the platform. The platform is where their leads will go and has pipeline conversion tools and reporting, call recording, sort of features that will make that inquiry sort of sticky and help them onboard them as a client effectively. Then they also can pay for locations, and that effectively gives them a size of new business pipeline. So the more locations they have, the wider coverage, and therefore the more opportunities they will have to match to relevant consumer inquiries. And then the final piece of that is per inquiry that's accepted. So we give the professional advisor some skeleton information on the inquiry, and they have the option to accept or reject that. That's really important for us because we want a good experience both sides. We don't want that consumer to come in and then to be told, oh, you're not right for me, you haven't got enough money or anything like that. And we want the professional advisor to really actively want that inquiry and to act on it really quickly. So we charge on a unit basis for the inquiries that they accept.
And sort of circling back to again to that point around a lot of these issues, with these apps are facing is that frankly they're not seeing, I suppose, their lifetime value per customer is significantly lower then in that case than what Unbiased is seeing, because obviously you're monetizing the advisors, in multiple different ways. So there's actually an incentive there, and it kind of works is directly opposite over kind of what these sort of fintech apps are doing at the moment, which is really interesting.
There's so much competition, though, in the finance app space, right? There's some incredible branding out there. There's some incredible services out there. And I think that when they're new to market, it is really hard to get that cut through. And as I said earlier, one of our ways of success was we were very early on able to get into other people's brands and be referred to because there wasn't much competition in terms of the service we were offering. And that was really great for us. That gave us that leg up because PPC costs money, branding costs money, all those other channels to your market costs a lot of money. And to get other third parties endorsing what you do was gold dust for us.
I mean, you're even recommended by the government's money advice service, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you see Martin Lewis on the TV, or is it on a Tuesday night, telling people to sort out their pensions, etc., we are step 4 on sorting your pension out on the government site. It's find a financial advisor. And I think that really speaks to the fact that, our mission is empowering people to make confident life and financial decisions. People haven't done the types of things that they want a financial advisor to help them with before. Like you insure your car and your home on an annual basis. You sort of learn how you use the comparison site and you get savvy at it. You don't have the opportunity to do that when you're, retiring, or should you purchase an annuity or not? And I think it's really what I've learned over time is that people are making these financial decisions for their loved ones, really. It's not about what rate and what's the fee and, what can I get here and there. It's very much around, I want to feel confident that I'm ensuring my children have the right education, that my parents, if they need to go to a care home, can choose the right one and we can pay the fees. That you don't leave your spouse, should you die, unable to pay the mortgage or the bills. It really is decisions around life that are supported by your finances, really. It's not about, what rate can you get in a savings account.
That's really interesting. And I mean, we work with a few of these apps and we've seen that as well. It's the way we built, without sort of, talking too much about our services and stuff. when we've approached these things, we've kind of looked at sort of moments in life that then create, a reason as to why the user is then searching for these particular services, or wants to download an app to help them with something or whatever it may be. One of the things I kind of want to touch upon, though, is kind of in and around that. One is, I think, just looking at the net worth / age of the audience, or of your audience, and then perhaps, where there are perhaps gaps in that. And then second of all, around perhaps the gender disparity as well as, the financial services industry in terms of both service providers and users of it tend to be male. I think that's sort of 75%. So I'd be really interested to hear kind of like Unbiased and your view on, I suppose, the gender piece, certainly. And then also, your views around perhaps areas of perhaps less affluent individuals that are perhaps not receiving the financial sort of advice that they're looking, that they need and require, maybe why that is.
Good question. I mean, our target audience is either people with some money, and I would say upwards of £10,000 that they can do something with. If you've got debts, if you're not generating an income in any way, you should potentially be thinking about how you can start paying those off, getting together a rainy day fund, getting some consistency around your budgeting before you seek financial advice. And those apps you talk about are great for doing that, really understanding where your money's going and your savings pots and getting on with that. There's still a lot of people who should be accessing advice who don't, and we're here to encourage them in and doing that. And we encourage people to use those apps. If people can start investing or getting control of their finances, that's making the financial advice customer of the future. So we welcome, any move there is for either financial education or engagement across any app, site, etc. In terms of the gender disparity in both, I'd say it's both finance and tech. There's definitely more men in the industry I work in. I'm really proud personally that we have no gender pay gap in Unbiased. Till a couple of months ago, I had 50% of my senior team female. Someone left, and now I've hired someone in who's male. So it's always it's always ongoing work to maintain those levels that you reach. Historically, I just think that finance and tech have been male-dominated areas. I went to a boys' boarding school. I don't know whether that did something in terms of my mindset, but I couldn't care less whether you're man or woman. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I don't think that anyone is concerned with women in finance or tech. And actually, if you speak to the women who are working in those industries, I think generally it's great. We're welcomed, and they're great areas to work in. I know personally, I found that I've got more of a platform and an authentic sort of experience being a female founder, being a female in tech and finance. And I really enjoy going out and speaking with other women and men about that sort of gender piece and what we can do to improve it. Now, interestingly, 16% of financial advisors are women. So, it's definitely a minority. But things are changing because in 2025, 60% of the wealth in this country is going to be in female control. And I think that's really then going to be helping people who are in financial services to think, I've got to be doing something for women as well as men, because actually they account for a lot of wealth that's held. And businesses follow the money, and whoever's got the money, there'll be services and products popping up for them. In our business, interestingly, we're really diverse. So gender and every other meaning of the word diversity. And I think just really that helps us see what other consumers and our customers might be thinking. And I think that try and keep as much diversity as you can at all levels within your business, because then you're just going to be having a wider array of an opinion, and you're not going to be thinking everyone thinks the same as you. And I think that's part of, it's not just gender disparity, it's people from different backgrounds with, different experiences, and we want to be inclusive. I found it interesting. We were raising funding. We've done that twice now. I must have been out and spoken to 50 businesses when we did our first round. Came across one woman, one.
All right.
So I think the investment space is definitely not as represented as even, general personal finance and tech is. The investment space is really underrepresented.
What do you, and not to put you on the spot, but what do you think would help improve that diversity and getting more women, more female founders, getting more women sitting on boards, starting up companies? What do you think would help?
So I think all the networking events and women giving other women, good stories and examples. So I definitely try and do that myself. Speaking on a webinar yesterday, which was around women seeking financial advice, telling them it's all possible. You're important. You should be taking control of your finances. Absolutely, because it puts you in a position of strength in your sort of personal and professional business. So I'm very much an ambassador of sort of those groups, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's in person, communicating, telling women, have the confidence, do it. We're here behind you. It's all possible. Definitely when it comes to recruitment, trying to get, not only the best talent in your business, but making it, as I said, as diverse as possible. Sometimes that means female versus male. But as I said, diversity comes in many shapes and sizes. And for me, it's not just about the gender. It's definitely about having a rich mix of different opinion in businesses. And I think businesses should be actively looking for that mix. If you see a board of all, 50-year-old white men, they're going to be missing a trick in terms of services and ways of communicating that potentially having some different types of people in the business would definitely give them.
I'm just going to switch streams a little bit. And I want to talk, as I said, like you kind of cover so much in your sort of like intro, really, and I want to make sure we hit on as many of those points as possible. One of the things that you touched upon was that have you now launched into the US, or is it imminent?
No, we've launched into the US. So we made our .com website live back in November. We have been growing well in the UK, but it was interesting in terms of funding and deals went really quiet starting at the beginning of last year. We were looking and thinking, right, what opportunities do we have for growth in the UK? And then we looked at growth in the US and just saw that there was nothing really being offered like we offer. Yes, there's lead generators, but not with the platform that helps conversion. So we just thought, actually, in pursuit of growth, this was the biggest thing that we could do. So after launching the site in November, we'd done a second raise to fund the launch into the US. We had passed the break-even point in the UK business from our first funding round back in December 2019. And so we decided to raise again and go through that same cycle. We very quickly got to a trial period where by the end of December of last year, we had a customer and we were out creating inquiries with a landing page, just a really simple form, and passing them over and getting a sense of what were the inquiries that we could generate, at what cost, and starting to talk to customers. We then stopped that trial and rebuilt the platform, basically copying the best of what we had in the UK, and with the premise that we're just going to see what fails in the US. We know something's different, but we don't quite know what. We're going to take what we think is the best of what we've got in the UK, launch it over in the US. We did that. We started a trial with 26 customers that we had found over there in April. And we're still running that trial at the moment, but we are revenue generating imminently. So what that taught us to do really was that we launched in the whole of the US, got back some data, very quickly honed in on 7 states only, which we're now looking to sort of build out customers and get consumer demand generation just in those 7 states. Of course, we get inquiries from all over because our website clearly is a .com website and covers the whole of the US, but that has enabled us to really focus our efforts. We went over there with only one of our products, our best-selling product, and we only moved into this RIA, Registered Investment Advisor space. So only the financial services, not mortgages and not accountants. So we went over there with a slimmed down offering of what we do. And look, it's going great guns. As always, it's taking a bit longer than I would like, as these things do. But we really are on track in terms of we have been growing traffic and inquiries exponentially, week on week, month on month. We are getting a different blend in. At first, we were just paying PPC channels, and clearly that's expensive. And we were having to get the SEO up and running and the content, and then also start looking at partnerships and affiliates, etc. So it's going well. And, it's really exciting having this new sort of blank piece of paper side of the business running alongside something that's more mature and is now profit generating. And we have a lot of experience and sort of know our funnel in the UK. And it's really interesting just launching stuff. And it's made us so much more creative. It's interesting. We're going, right, what do we do on consumer demand gen? And we'll come up with some ideas. And then we'll go, hey, why aren't we doing this in the UK? We've come up with an idea for demand gen over in the US, but we're not even applying that in the UK. So there's been real synergies in terms of not just taking stuff from the UK and putting it in the US, but our thought process in trying to crack a market that's new, that hasn't heard of us. And we're trying to build that brand awareness and build traffic. And it's all back to the beginning, like it was back in the early days, has really galvanized the team. And, they're highly motivated. We started off with 5 people. We're now at 100. We've probably recruited about 20, 25 specifically for the US effort. So it's been a big job sort of integrating them, getting them up to speed with how Unbiased operates. But one thing we did learn was how expensive US talent is. And we'd had a plan to hire more people in the US than we have. When we looked at the cost of it, we've had to rethink our plan and hire many more people in the UK to work on the US. That's been great because we've been able to sort of absorb them into our culture and sit them alongside the UK companions who are working on the same things. And it's great that we're an online service because they can write content and do SEO and performance optimization, etc., from the UK that will impact sort of the US. And we've only had to make a handful of hires on the US side. But that was definitely a learning curve for me, just in terms of how expensive talent is in the US, and we've had to sort of work around that a bit. But advisors are loving the platform. They're really excited around the level of customization, around the ability to use the features to help them convert. And there's a competitor over in the US who's massive, and we're not looking to go head to head with them, but we are compared to them. And the advisors say, they give us inquiries and we're converting 1 in 20. Our conversion metric here in the UK is 1 in 3. So I'm sure you can imagine advisors' time that we're saving as a result of our accept reject, the algorithm matching, the features on the platform that support conversion. Have I emailed this customer? Have I called them? And that effectively, that sort of dashboard that allows them to see all their new business and what stage it's at is really supporting their businesses. So that's great. And the biggest challenge really is for us to generate inquiries. So that consumer demand gen piece, scaling that up as fast as we can. Lucky we've got loads of know-how in the UK, but also we're mindful that things are different in the US. It's a big place. The geographies work differently. The East Coast, the West Coast, the people have a different mindset to planning their finances. They're very much more open about it, and they focus on some slightly different things. And also the customers over there, the professional advisors, are so much more commercial. If they win some business, they're happy to pay away whatever it might be, 1 year value, whereas there's more of a relationship that has to be built up here in the UK to do business. So we're learning all these things, and it's exciting, and I think breathing life into the UK operation.
That's really interesting. I think it's funny how when you sort of reframe a challenge, it suddenly delivers a whole bunch of new idedes, and
really
all it's taken is swapping out UK with the US. Obviously it's a little bit more than that, but how have you found it, yourself personally? Is it kind of like, it sounds like it's kind of reinvigorated you and kind of boosted you, and have you found it's kind of given you a kind of like a big boost, and has it been a big motivator for you for both obviously the US, but for the UK business as well?
So I love it, and I find it's exciting. It reminds me of like the heady early days where you just had to make decisions, and really they weren't based on much apart from your gut. And as the business has matured, we have so much more data. We've got looker insights. And that's great. We've got lots more data points with which to make a decision. But in the US now, because the business is bigger and because we've got funding, it feels like there's a lot more riding on it. It's interesting. I think about, if I knew any more than I know, we wouldn't have done it. You sort of go in there and you just got to be positive and say, look, there's a reason why we can't crack this. And you have to have that mindset. As you say, I definitely think that it's inspiring people to think differently, which is benefiting, both parts of the business. And it's great to know that we do have the UK that's solid and mature, and we can sort of forecast and know what's coming in there whilst we learn. And we're definitely still in a learning phase in terms of the US, where things are definitely a bit more volatile in terms of funnel metrics and forecasting, etc. We learn something new every day. I see that across the business. Everyone feels more excited about this project, and I've seen them in a long time.
So out of pure curiosity, what were the characteristics of the 7 states that you had chosen to launch into? What was it about those 7 states, and why 7? It just stuck out in my mind.
Right, 7 is just a random number. So very much it was driven off Google data around demand generation, mapped over where our customers were, so where professional advisors were. The underlying trend that sits underneath that is large groups of people who are working, generally families making family decisions. So if you've got somebody who's working, you've got children being born, jobs being changed, houses being bought, people getting older and needing to think about retirement and investing. They were really reasons why those sort of states are working for us. Probably won't be surprised that East and West Coast feature heavily, with a bit of Texas, no tax state sitting in the middle. There's reasons just in terms of the level of wealth that people have. And interestingly, the average wealth that people have using our service here in the UK is £360,000. In the US, it's more than double that, over £900,000. So there's just a lot more wealthier people in the US. Yes, it's more expensive, but there's definitely a level of wealth, and there's more people sitting in that bracket where financial advice would be really useful to them in terms of planning out their finances.
I mean, we've covered a hell of a lot on this episode so far, but I think one area that I haven't focused on is probably the tech part of the fintech. And I'd like to just dig into that a little bit more. For Unbiased, I understand obviously the platform is very, very focused on matching retail users with your customers, with IFAs in here in the UK. I'd really love to understand more about how you've developed your platform over the years, and then how that's ultimately led to fundamentally delivering a superior product that's been beneficial for both parties.
We definitely really got involved in this around 2014, 2015. We had monetized the business previously on just a subscription basis, and then any inquiries that we generated were given to the advisor, and we didn't even count them really. And when we looked forward about where the value was being created, we understood that we very much needed to extract the inquiry part out from the subscription part. Now, we did that by bringing the tech in-house and building a platform that effectively created that algorithm, and then there's a sort of forwarding system that sits underneath that. It was interesting because we launched the inquiry part of the platform, and it didn't really work for 4 months. And we tweaked and tweaked and tweaked. And it's really interesting in tech where you have an idea and you think it makes sense and it's going to work, and then it doesn't. And you just spend your time tweaking and thinking through, well, why isn't this? And looking at what people are doing. And suddenly one day you get it. You tweak the right thing, and suddenly the plan comes together and works. And I think really just from that point onwards, it was just, as I said, tweaking, building, adding things day by day, very much talking to customers around what it was they wanted and what they valued, which was, a system to help them build their new business pipeline, reporting requirements, so they could stand up on their Monday morning reporting sessions and say, this is where I am with X, Y, and Z. And also the fact that they wanted to save on their own time and convert customers. They don't want to be out prospecting and talking to people and got them falling by the wayside. So we built that into the platform. And then we understood sort of user cases to a greater degree. Lots of small businesses use our product, but then some bigger customers. And actually an area we've been successful in the last couple of years is enterprise sales. So this is where we're making bigger sales and signing sort of annual contracts. But in exchange for that, we have to potentially do some changes to the platform. And one of the things we heard was they're using their CRM system. They're not using our pipeline tool. So we then went and built a Zapier API integration, because actually that made them stickier with us as a lead generator, because they could take the data and without rekeying it, could get it into their own system. So I think our approach to tech has been, well, what's going to give the best value to our customers, and therefore where we can drive monetization and value, etc. And definitely we have grown out the tech teams. We've been using sort of an offshore Russian team for a long time. Excellent quality of code, really bright individuals. Clearly when the war sort of broke out, well, some of them moved and we had to quickly find other providers of the tech team. But we had already got a tech team in the UK just to de-risk potentially any sort of situation. So we were really well placed for that. But as the tech team's grown, we now sort of have 4 squads, soon to be 5. And we put a lot of effort really in not just maintaining the current system, but also building new parts and new features. And the US for us, as I've mentioned before, has been a real push, building something new. And anything that we wanted to do in the UK site but hadn't got round to, we used the US almost as an excuse to try new things with the full intention of refitting those back into the UK once we'd tested them in the US. So, tech's a huge part of our business. We want to be scalable, cost effective. We're available 24/7. We want to deliver features that give value to our customers. And I think that's really how we prioritize the tech projects that we have at any given time.
Conquering the US is clearly on the roadmap. But what else does the future hold for Unbiased, and what else does the future hold for you?
So I think there's a huge amount to do in the UK. As I mentioned, there's a massive advice gap. So we definitely need to think as a business how we can get in front of more people. For me, I think that means getting into different areas working with different brands in partnerships. Only 8% of people take advice, yet 1 in 4 people that should have a pension doesn't. People don't have rainy day funds. There's a lot of work to be done. So we're very committed to the UK market and making great strides in our growth here. The US market, 10 times the size of the UK. We've been received really well. Next milestones are generating some revenue and growing and scaling that business. It's a large geography, and we need to get that right. At the moment, because we're a marketplace, we're in those early stages of getting both sides of consumer and professional advisor up so that we can get the marketplace efficiency working. So that's sort of an imminent challenge that we've got. And then just generally moving forward, after the US works, look to the next geography, bringing the other verticals into sort of mortgage advice and accountants into the US operation. And then back here in the UK, I'd love to add more verticals to what we do. We have a really great funnel of lead generation, conversion for, professional advisors, but it could be any advisors, care, fees planning, funerals, wills. There's lots of decisions that people make that they don't feel prepared and ready for, that we could actually say, well, this is where you find an expert. Unbiased for all the things you just don't know where to start. So lots of options for the future.
It's been absolutely fantastic speaking with you. Before I let you go, I'm going to quickly take you through our quick fire round. What podcasts are you listening to right now, or would you recommend?
Oh, I'm not listening to anything, but I go off on holiday soon, and I am going to be listening to Michael Lewis Against the Rules, which someone recommended to me recently.
Amazing. And I would say on the note of books, is there anything else that you're reading at the moment or you would recommend?
I am currently reading one by Jackie Insinger called Spark Brilliance. And this is just because I keep hiring really cool, talented people, and they're challenging me all the time, and you can never stop learning. So I do like what I call a self-help book, which just helps me, I think, stay on as much as I can on top of my game when I'm dealing with all these great people that I'm hiring in. And it's just really about sparking brilliance. If you're a leader or you've got a manager or a team, how can you get that team to operate at their best?
Amazing. And aside from Unbiased, what's your favourite fintech company, brand or app?
So I am obsessed at the moment with a business called Ellevest. They're a US company. It's a female-focused investment service, and the CEO is called Sally Krawcheck. She does a lot of blogs. You'll find her all over LinkedIn, and she writes about making women confident in making financial decisions and all the sort of barriers to taking financial advice and investing that women come across and how they feel. And she's just brilliant, and I love everything that she's doing, and I wish I was her.
Amazing. And then if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Have confidence. You're great. You're unique. No one else has the skill set and the mindset that you do. So go and do whatever it is you want to do. Don't be scared.
And my last question, probably my favourite question, is what's one thing that I haven't asked you that I perhaps should have?
Oh, that would be, how can I get myself a financial advisor? And I would tell you to head to unbiased.co.uk in the UK or unbiased.com if you're in the US. Find yourself a financial advisor. Even if you just have a chat with them, you'll come out of it feeling more informed and better off in terms of your financial future, and you'll thank me later.
Amazing. Perfect place to end. Karen, absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thank you very much, I've really enjoyed it. You do great podcasts, and I hope that people listen to this and go on their own growth stories.
The FML podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.